Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you are watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. Australia and Israel relations have strained as Australia recognized a Palestinian state after mass protests in Sydney and a shift in public opinion amid the Israel-Gaza war. The move following similar decisions by the UK, France and Canada marked a break from Canberra's traditional alignment with Israel. Aid agencies and the United Nations are warning that Gaza's hunger crisis has reached a tipping point with critically low supplies of fortified milk and nutritious paste during pushing in children towards starvation. Hospitals struggle to treat rapidly rising malnutrition cases as deaths from hunger continue to spike. Ukraine's military has struck Russia's Unecha oil pumping station in Bryansk region yesterday, causing a large fire at a facility with multiple fuel tanks. Commander Robert Borovdy has announced the attack marks another escalation in energy structure targeting amid the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. A Thai court has confirmed that it has dismissed a royal insult case against former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra due to insufficient evidence. The ruling ends a high-profile case that has threatened to jail him under Thailand's strict laissez-majesté laws. This comes a week before his daughter Paitongtarn Shinawatra faces court ruling. Chinese President Xi Jinping will host Russia's President Vladimir Putin, UN Chief Antonio Guterres, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and over 20 heads of government at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Tianjin from August 31st to September 1st. Beijing has said the summit will unveil new political and security plans. 8 Colombian police officers were killed and 8 injured in clashes with a FARC dissidents faction that shot down a police helicopter, marking a major escalation in violence. Hours later, a truck bomb killed 5 people and injured dozens in Cali, targeting a military aviation school. This comes as the country prepares for their next election. Thousands of Indonesians have protested as they face sharp local tax hikes as President Prabowo Subianto proposed cutting regional funding by 25% to $40 billion in 2026. Critics warned the move could spark widespread public outrage and undermine decades of decentralization reforms. Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te has announced a goal to lift defense spending to 5% of its GDP before 2030, responding to pressure from Washington to bolster the island's military, while the current 2025 defense budget is set at 3.32% of their GDP. Smoke rose over Gaza City after Israeli strikes today, despite Israel's plan to seize the city, approved by the Security Cabinet. Some residents remain determined to stay. This comes as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reaffirmed his commitment on August 21st to defeat Hamas and capture Gaza City. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his government will begin immediate negotiations for the release of all hostages in Gaza. He insists any deal to end the nearly 2-year war must be on terms acceptable to Israel. His remarks come as the army presses ahead with plan to capture Gaza City and defeat Hamas, calling up 60,000 reservists. Let's listen into what the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said.
אני הגעתי היום לאוגדת עזה כדי לאשר את התוכניות שצה"ל הציג בפניי ושר הביטחון להשתלטות על העיר עזה ולהכרעת החמאס. במקביל אני הנחיתי להתחיל במשא ומתן מיידי על שחרור כל חטופינו וסיום המלחמה בתנאים שמקובלים על ישראל.
Now for this discussion, we are joined by Professor Kobi Michael. He's a senior researcher at the INSS and Misgov Institute, joins us live from Israel. Thank you, Professor, for joining us today. Good to see you. Professor, what does Israel mean by Israel's acceptable terms for Israel? Is there a difference between the acceptable terms for Israel and acceptable terms for Hamas?
Yes, of course. There are unbridgeable gaps between both. The Israeli demands, by the way, are confirmed and legitimized and supported by the international community and the Arab countries here in the region. And generally speaking, there are three security demands. The first one is that Hamas will be dismantled. The second one is that Hamas will not be part of any future governmental entity in the Gaza Strip, will not be part of the day after in the Gaza Strip. And the third dimension is that the Gaza Strip will be entirely demilitarized. There is also, I would say, an agreement about the principle that Israel will have overwhelming responsibility with regard to security from the outside of the Gaza Strip. So these are the Israeli demands, and Israel cannot end the war without implementing these demands. And of course, that the release of all the hostages, 50 hostages, is part of the demands. Now, as I said, the gaps are unbridgeable because the main interest of Hamas is to, first of all, not to disarm itself. Secondly, to remain effectively as the sovereign power in the Gaza Strip. Because even when they say that they are willing to give up on the civilian authorities, everybody knows that as long as they will remain an organized military formation, eventually they will dictate what will be there in the Gaza Strip, and they will be able to reconstitute themselves and to prepare themselves for another October 7th.
And Professor, how does this Israel's renewed commitment to capturing Gaza while negotiating also for hostages influence the trajectory of this ongoing conflict?
Because Israel tried to use all the existing options, even some theoretical options like the negotiation, or options with a very low probability to succeed like the negotiation, because Israel prefers that all of its security demands will be realized without the need of occupying the city of Gaza or the entire Gaza Strip. I mean, I think that it is very reasonable. But if Israel will remain with no other option, then Israel prepares itself to the occupation of the city of Gaza and then the entire Gaza Strip in order to realize its objectives.
Thank you, Professor, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic now. In the occupied West Bank, the Israeli military army conducted a raid in the village of Al-Mughayr on Thursday, searching for a Palestinian man accused of firing at Israelis near the Adayat settlement. One Israeli was reported lightly injured in this attack. The operation is the latest in a series of escalating tensions in the region. Meanwhile, a joint statement condemning Israel's controversial settlement expansion plan in the West Bank has been signed by 21 countries, including Britain, France, and Canada. The project, which aims to build thousands of homes in the E1 area near Jerusalem, has been criticized as a violation of international law and a threat to peace efforts. The foreign ministers of the signatory nations called for Israel to reverse the decision, citing its potential to undermine a two-state solution and fuel further instability in the region. Now we go back to our guest discussion with Professor Kobi Michael. Thank you, Professor Kobi, for staying with us. Now, with 21 countries condemning Israel's settlement expansion plans, how do you see these 21 countries, and do you think they'd have any influence to pressure Israel?
It pressures Israel, but it doesn't mean that eventually it will change the policy of the State of Israel. Now, we have to distinguish between the official policy of the State of Israel with regard to the settlements in the West Bank and some illegal activities that are taken there by a very small and marginal group of Israeli extreme youngsters there that unfortunately sometimes even reaches to terrorism. But this is not the policy of the State of Israel. Now, Israel became to be almost indifferent to the series of condemnations of the international community, and recently led by European countries and leaders, because in our view, this is an indication, first of all, of weakness and fear of these leaders that are not able to tackle the radical Islam and the violent Islam in their countries. And they believe that by appeasing the radicals in their countries on the one hand, and by attacking and criticizing Israel on the other hand, they will be able to calm the situation and to be safer and more secure. I think that they are wrong in this regard, but their policy, generally speaking, is also an indication to stupidity whenever it comes to strategy, policy, diplomacy, and to immorality when it comes to these aspects as well. And instead of joining Israel and supporting Israel, and instead of condemning the Hamas and all of the countries that support Hamas, like Turkey and Qatar, and instead of appreciating what Israel does for the sake of the entire free civilization, they prefer to do some other things. And this is something that does not add any respect to them.
And Professor, you mentioned that within Israel too, there are people opposing this. So how is it? Is this voice growing, or how are they? Is this voice that is in Tel Aviv? We saw protests taking place. How is this covered in Israel?
It is broadly covered, and I think that this is an indication to the vitality of the Israeli democracy. We are talking about a very vibrant, healthy democracy, the only one in the entire Middle East, the only one that is attacked by the other democracies, okay? Something which is not less than absurd. But at the end of the day, talking about democracy, we have an elected government, and the government has to make its decisions when the government sees in front of its eyes the broadest interests of the Israeli national security. And eventually they have to make very difficult, tough, hard, harsh decisions. And they see and they listen to the protest. But at the end of the day, they have to do what they have to do according to their understanding. Now, if at the end of the day, the public will not be satisfied from the decisions that will be made, so in the D-Day, in the election day, they will elect a different government and will throw this government from power. These are the rules of the game in democracy. I mean, the democracy is not run, or decisions, when decisions come to the level of national security, a country, a democratic country, is not run by protests and demonstrations, okay? It runs by the responsibility and the authority that the elected government has. This is the principle, and at the end of the day, this is the responsibility of the elected government to deal with these heavy and complicated issues.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Professor Kobi Michael, for joining us and sharing your insight throughout this topic. Thank you very much. Now we move on to next news. A New York appeals court has struck down a $500 million penalty against President Donald Trump while keeping the underlying fraud case alive. The civil case filed by New York Attorney General Letitia James accused Trump of overstating his wealth to boost the Trump Organization. The original judgment totaled $464.6 million, but the appeals panel voided the payment, citing judicial errors without reaching a majority opinion. President Trump called it a total victory, while James said she will seek review by the state's highest court. The ruling also temporarily lifted restrictions on President Trump and his sons, but let a court monitor continue oversight. Judges agreed fraud occurred but said damages did not justify $500 million penalty. Let's listen in to what President Trump has said.
Todd Blanche, who's been with me so long, and he's one of the best lawyers you'll ever find. And we're having a lot of victories. I had a victory today. You know, they stole $550 million from me with a fake case, and it was overturned. They said this was a fake case. It's a terrible thing, but that's a nice victory, you know. I mean, it's not bad. You know, we all have our limits, but this was a terrible thing that done. It was a witch hunt. And I've had more witch hunts than any human being, I think, in history. And here we are with the President of the United States. So it didn't work out too well for them. But maybe now it's turned a little bit. These are very dishonest people. We have to fight. We have to win because we have to win.
Now for this discussion, we're joined by Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Tokyo, Japan. Thank you, Dr. Satoru, for joining us. Good to see you. Now, what does this appeals court decision to strike down $500 million from penalty against President mean for the ongoing legal battle? What does this signal?
From the timing it has started, this is not only the court for the business issue, but also the political issue. This court issue itself has a political event to prevent the President Trump to be the candidate of the president. They try to stop. They try to dissuade President Trump to be the candidate of the president. That was the original purpose, political purpose of this court, I think. So that's why, view from now, the role has finished. But at the same time, next year, the midterm election will come. In this case, still, that issue is useful politically. So in the near future, so this is the Supreme Court of the New York State, but still there is a higher court in Washington, D.C. So that's why this issue will continue, I believe. But anyway, this is not purely the business issue. This is a political issue, I believe. Thank you.
And Dr. Satoru, do you think that could this case have a broader implication for corporate accountability in U.S., especially regarding high-profile cases involving public figures or presidents?
In case of the president is supported by U.S. voters. This means that this is a big, important background. So if the court try to change the president without the support of the voters who support President Trump, this is controversial. So that's why, indeed, it is very difficult to charge against President Trump without very, very, very strong evidence. So this time, this issue is a little bit ambiguity issue, and the topic is a little bit small. Size of the money is big, but compared with the national budget, this is small. So that's why this is small issue. In this case, it is not easy to change the president without very wide public support, I think.
Thank you very much, Dr. Satoru Nagao, for joining us and sharing your insight throughout this topic. Now we move on. Ukraine says Russia launched one of its heaviest overnight assaults, firing more than 570 drones and 40 missiles. President Volodymyr Zelensky says many were intercepted, but civilian areas were hit. A U.S.-owned factory in Mukachevo was destroyed, which he called a deliberate strike on American investment. Russia, meanwhile, claims to have captured a village in Donetsk and says it struck Ukrainian energy, military, and airfield facilities. Moscow also released video showing its troops using explosives in the region. And in other developments, Ukraine says it has 11 billion cubic meters of gas in underground storage, while Russia says it has begun naval drills in the Baltic Sea. Now for this, we are joined by Thomas Porteous. He's an anchor and correspondent at NewsX World. Thank you, Thomas, for joining us. What more can you tell us about the ongoing situation with Ukraine and Russia?
Well, of course, as you've said, Asuma, the aerial barrage continues from Russia onto Ukrainian soil, mainly focusing on those areas in the east of Ukraine that Russia are particularly keen on taking. This time it's Donetsk. 574 drones flew overnight into Ukraine, most of which have been intercepted. This comes obviously as Russia, as you said, have launched these huge naval exercises as a display of strength given the Western sanctions against Russia. Russia continues to show it has military strength, it has the latest military capabilities on land, sea and air. This comes as well following Ukraine's testing of a new Flamingo missile, which occurred yesterday. Both sides flexing their strength on the battlefield. The Flamingo missile, which can launch 3,000 kilometers, that again shows Kiev's strength. It was supplied by European powers and sold to by the United States. An obvious diplomatic backdrop is here. Zelensky accuses Moscow of not being serious about peace. Of course, these aerial attacks show an element of that as they continue to escalate. Of course, everyone is anticipating whether that trilateral meeting with Donald Trump, with Vladimir Zelensky, with Vladimir Putin is going to happen within the coming weeks. We will, of course, here on NewsX World keep you tuned on all fronts, whether that's on the battlefield or diplomatically in regards to the Russia-Ukraine war.
Thank you very much, Thomas, for joining us and sharing that insight. Now, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif met Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Islamabad. During the meeting, Shehbaz has said Pakistan values its ties with China and highlighted plans to attend the upcoming SCO Tianjin summit and commemoration of World War II anniversaries in China. He has expressed Pakistan's interest in advancing a version 2.0 of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, known as CPEC, with expanded cooperation in agriculture, mining, energy, aviation, aerospace, information technology, and infrastructure. The meeting followed Wang Yi's discussions with Pakistani Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, where China signaled readiness to expand cooperation in industry, agriculture, and mining. Now for this discussion, we are joined by retired Major General Gigi Dwivedi. He's a global strategic defense expert. Thank you, Major General, for joining us again. Good to see you.
Thank you, Suma. Thank you.
Thank you. So now how does Pakistan's focus on this version 2.0 for the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor reflect its evolving relationship with China?
Well, Suma, after the visit to India, Wang Yi, the Foreign Minister of China, went straight to Pakistan, and that shows that they balance their relations vis-a-vis India and Pakistan. And China and Pakistan have a deep strategic partnership, and they call their relations, very intense, hard than mountains, sweeter than honey. So that is only the manifestation. That's why Wang Yi straight went from India to Pakistan. Now they discussed a couple of issues on this during the visit. First and foremost was, of course, the economic, because China and Pakistan, they have a trade of almost $23 billion. That shows that their trade relations are very strong. And they discussed the issues like how to enhance the agriculture, mining, and other related issues. The second issue was, rightly you brought out, is the CPEC, that is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is the signature Belt and Road Initiative project, personally supervised by President Xi Jinping. And Chinese have invested about $60 billion into Pakistan CPEC, and now they're looking at CPEC 2.0, that is how expanding the CPEC further. That is into Afghanistan. They did have the trilateral with Afghanistan, and they're looking at expanding the CPEC, ambit into Afghanistan. That would be CPEC 2.0. And also the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, where Pakistan is a member, that issue was also discussed, and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif will be there to attend the SCO meeting on 31st August, 1st September, and also attend the Victory Parade of China 1945, which is being commemorated. So all said that the relation between China and Pakistan is very strong, and in fact, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif did mention the solidarity extended by China as far as the sovereignty of Pakistan is concerned, and that was visible or manifestation was there during Operation Sindoor, where China extended full support to Pakistan, beyond even giving the weapon system like PL-50. They gave all the other information from satellites, which is quite on the record. So suffice to say that Pakistan-China relationship are strategic in nature, and they are close allies, and Pakistan depends heavily on China economically, politically, and also from the security perspective. Asuma.
And Major General, could now India consider pursuing its own strategic partnership or initiatives with China as well?
Yes, in India and China, of course, they are neighbors, they have certain tensions and problems, and I write extensively on this issue. The point is that India and Chinese relationship has been on the roller coaster. They have seen the very intense tension period in 1962, and thereafter the things did steady up, and the 5 agreements were signed between 1993 and 2013. But all that went down the drain when People Liberation Army, they went in for intrusion in Eastern Ladakh in 2020, and incidentally, President Xi Jinping is also the chairman of Central Military Commission. Now, after the Kazan meeting last October, both the countries are making effort to mend the relations, but the major problems are there. Those problems are primarily, as far as India is concerned, the border tension. The secondly is the Chinese approach on the international forum, which is not favorable to India. How China and Pakistan, we just discussed how their partnership is in fact a matter of concern for India, and how Chinese are making inroads into South Asia, be it Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, all these are matter of concern. But yes, you are right that bilateral relations between India and China need to be managed. They may not be able to sort out the deep, intense problems. They may not be able to become actually the partners, but they can avoid becoming adversaries or hostile neighbors. And to that extent, the onus lies on China, because the Chinese who have always broken the agreements, who have always, fell short on the trust. And that's why in 2020 summers, the relation really went nosedive because of the hostile, aggressive action of China. But nonetheless, the efforts on to how to manage the relations, how to bring down the tension, how to reduce the hostility, and how exactly at least working relationship can be established, if not the all-time partnership. And this is what I think the leaders of two countries are doing. And also, let's not forget that there is a change of geopolitics in the global arena, and especially the U.S. Relations with India, which has taken a hit because of the tariff war initiated by President Trump. So that also to be taken to cognizance. But in summarize, I can say that the relation between two countries need to have at least working relationship, if not the strategic partnership, and at least two countries need to have reduce the hostility, reduce the tension, and then address the major issues which primarily concern the border, the other geopolitical dimensions, and Chinese support to the countries or the forces which are inimical to India. Asuma.
Thank you very much, Major General Gigi Dwivedi, for joining us and sharing your insight throughout this news. We will be covering this region as the relationship evolves. Thank you. Now we move on. We have a breaking news. A steel cable failure during bridge construction in northwest China's Qinghai province has left 6 people dead and 10 others missing as of 12 p.m. local time, according to the Provincial Emergency Management Authority. The cable reportedly broke at the site of a bridge under construction on the Qinghai section of the Sichuan-Qinghai Railway. There were 16 workers on site at the time of the accident, according to a preliminary investigation. Well, this is all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world.